I'm Rebecca Fitchett, one of the partners at Milltown, and I'll be your host for this afternoon. We're going to focus in now on a topic at the heart of the AI fringe, which is how we ensure that AI benefits everyone in society. Our first speaker is one of the UK's foremost public servants and has fought for social equality and inclusion for decades. She is the Labour MP for Camberwell and Peckham and has been that since 1982. She's also chair of the Forces Society. She's held a wide array of senior positions in former governments and the Labour Party, including, because there are far too many to mention, the Secretary of State for Social Security and first ever Minister for Women. Please join me in welcoming to the stage the Right Honourable Harriet Harman.
Thank you, Rebecca, and it's great to see you all here today. I'm very pleased to have been invited to join you and share what's going to be, I know, a very interesting and expert panel discussion with good questions and contributions from all of you here. And I hope, like you, to learn a great deal. Like most people my age, I'm not an expert on AI or indeed on anything tech, but my experience has been in Parliament and government on policy making and regulation, and, as Rebecca said, particularly on equality. The developers of AI and the regulators are different generations, and that right there is a challenge that has to be recognised and tackled. I'm now, as Rebecca said, I'm now chair of Forset. We campaign for gender equality and women's rights at home, at work, and in public life. It's clear that AI will profoundly reshape all of these. It's vital to ensure its benefits are properly shared by women as well as men, and we guard against bias, entrenchment, or fueling discrimination. This issue will be a focus for Forset in the coming years, and I'll say something in a moment or two about some research that Forset's just done. Like, I guess, most of you here, I'm very hopeful of the opportunities AI provides, determined that those opportunities should be shaped in a pluralistic, accountable and fair way, and that the dangers should be identified and mitigated. And that's not just dangers for the future, but right here and now. Promoting the development of AI and mitigating its dangers are two sides of the same coin. And I think we should all be working on both rather than defaulting to two camps, those for and those against. It is happening and it will need to be regulated. The Online Safety Act, you'll know, obviously, has just passed into law, but it started with an announcement of an intention to regulate in a speech by the then Prime Minister, David Cameron, way back in 2013. Then fast forward, or rather slow forward, to 2017, there was an Internet Safety Green Paper. Then, 2019, there was an Online Harms White Paper. The draft bill was only published in May 2021, and the bill didn't become law until just a few weeks ago. That is 10 whole years. And that sort of time frame just can't work with AI, which is developing at a rapid pace. Government's and Parliament's response to COVID showed us both possibilities and pitfalls about dealing with pace and complexity. Parliament is notoriously slow to change, but faced with the mounting COVID deaths, we changed our processes literally overnight, meeting remotely, voting remotely. Sadly, unfortunately, we seem to have completely turned the clock back on that after COVID ended, but that's another story. We agreed retrospective approval for law changes in order not to cause any delay. So that was impressive, but the accountability side was thin. Aside from the work of the Treasury Select Committee, the Health Select Committee and the Joint Committee on Human Rights. I think we need to power up our select committees that are in the front line of work on AI, and they will need more resources to match up to the challenge of their scrutinising role on this important and emerging technology. AI development is unimaginably rapid, and Parliament's processes are slow. Perhaps we should be thinking, we in Parliament, about whether we can have accountability delegated to select committees on AI, so that we as Parliament can continuously and expertly carry out our parliamentary scrutiny, which is our role as part of regulation, without causing undue delay or without making Parliament feel that it's being ridden roughshod and without there being proper accountability of the executive. So that would be like parliamentary delegation to scrutinise regulations and scrutinise executive action. And of course, AI is a classic case of the private sector and public policy having to work together. That too needs to be reflected in government structures. I remember when the internet was just starting to gather pace when Labour was in government, we had a specific aim of promoting what was a completely new thing which most people had never heard of. And we called it e-commerce and had government structures to actively promote it. The point was we were determined to be ahead of this. And on AI, government can't be left behind and business can't be held back. There's major implications for equality, and there's a vital role for government to work with the education sector and the private sector to develop the AI workforce. We hear a great deal rightly about developing the NHS workforce. We need to hear as loud a volume on developing the AI workforce, and we should be ensuring inclusion, particularly of women. We can see that left to its own devices, it will not happen. It has to be driven purposefully. The inclusion of women is important, and I realise we always have to say this and remind ourselves why, not just tick that box. It's important for the individual because no woman should be discriminated against if she has a contribution to make. It's important for society. It's really an emblem of maternity that women are fully included. If you think of the most backward societies, they are the male-dominated ones that don't understand and use and include women in their society. And of course, it's important for the economy. And it's important for the sector because it will benefit from a meritocracy. This is not the sector doing women a favour. This is women doing the sector a favour. This is not anti-meritocracy. It is about meritocracy because it's about including all the talent in the country rather than being limited to just that half of it, which is men. So we really must have, wherever decisions are being taken, in the public or the private sector, we must have no men-only rooms. In planning for the development of the AI workforce, or indeed anything else to do with the development of the regulation or otherwise of AI, or otherwise we risk entrenching bias. And this is not about the decision makers, male decision makers, listening to or thinking about women. It's not about women's voices being heard by a male sector. This is about women being able to share the decision-making equally. And that will only happen if there's an express commitment and its delivery is engineered. We also need to make sure that there is a regional spread of AI. Once again, that's a question both of equity and getting the best talent. We've heard a lot about levelling up. We need levelling up embedded as part of AI. Clusters are important, but they should be throughout all regions, Scotland and Wales, not just emanating from one region. Without data, we would have no AI. So just as we've recognised that broadband and childcare are part of a modern infrastructure, so we have to see data sets as infrastructure. And we need to ensure that we make them clean and free from prejudice and bias and not engines of discrimination, which left to their own devices, that will be the default position. That means a massive focus on the quality of data and at the same time a sharp focus on the algorithms, not perpetuating and entrenching unfairness. All public sector bodies need to consider the public sector equality duty, which is there under the Equality Act, from right now when they're thinking about how they're using AI. And all public sector bodies are thinking about their use of AI, right from big national organisations like the NHS right through to local councils. AI seems very complex, so we need to be wary of the emperor's new clothes syndrome that led to the global financial crisis. There was not a proper understanding in government or parliament of what was going on in the financial markets, but we thought at least some of the people in those financial markets did know. So that was like reassuring, wasn't it? Except that they didn't. And that was, as it turned out, over-optimistic with catastrophic consequences. Even most of those in the system seemed to have no visibility down the chain of derivatives, and then the whole system collapsed. So we've got a responsibility not to think this is complex for us as government or us as parliament, but we're sure somebody out there knows that it's all fine. We've got to actually work it out for ourselves and be part of it. AI and the data upon which it relies knows no national boundaries, so we have to look outward to other countries, not just those in the global north, in the global south too. And again, that is not us in the global north doing the global south a favour. This is about recognising that there's all sorts of innovation going on in the global south, which we in the global north can learn from. And as well as looking outward to the rest of the world, we need to look down to local communities and their local government, their councils. There's opportunity and accountability challenges in local councils as well as central government. It can help with better services. They too are making decisions about how their services are provided and to who. There needs to be help for them and coordination for them in doing that. I don't think that's happening yet, but it really needs to be happening right now. The opportunities are roaring ahead. So after those preliminary thoughts, I'd like us now to turn to our very expert panel, Linda and Adrian, who I will introduce to you in a moment. Oh, here we are.